Okay, namaste. My name's Sara Parker. I'm from the UK. I've lived here most of my life, though from 1983 to 6, lived in Singapore for 3 years, went to United World College there, and then came back to university and lived in the UK for most of my life, apart from when I was in Nepal, in Singapore, and then I was in Nepal for 6 months in 1992 when I went to live there and volunteer there. I'm currently a lecturer at Liverpool John Moores University, so I'm Dr Sara Parker, and I'm a reader in development studies. I started off in human geography and then have moved into sociology, and now have just been awarded in the past year my readership, which is the next step to becoming a professor. And all of my research, or most of my research, is based in Nepal, building up on the first time that I went there in 1986, and all of it focuses around gender, education and development. So I'm really passionate about those three things, both in the UK but also in Nepal as well. Okay, so Fair Connections is a small company, as I've mentioned, and the idea for it came from, with the book, I was thinking about making it into an educational resource and developing it for primary schools in particular in 2013. But when I was in Nepal, I was with a friend who I'd recently met, and I took her to where the puppets are made, and Fairtrade products such as the puppets, and Fairtrade products which are hand woven. And she put together a story sack to take back to her school, and I thought, wow, that's a really good idea, to put products together to increase their value and to then have a more meaningful message that goes behind them. So one of the characters, which I haven't got on me, I can't believe it, but I will share it it's on my website, is a puppet frog, and it was already made based on this book about a Nepalese frog. And this book was written by Kanakmani Dixit because all the stories in Nepal that his children were learning in school were based on sort of fairy tales and Cinderella and Snow White, and he wanted a story about Nepal, about the culture and the landscape, so he wrote it himself, and a puppet frog was then made to go along with that book. So I took the idea of this little frog, and this is the nephew of the original one, and basically wrote this storybook. So the story is about Fairis, a frog, who has his coat and his hat from his uncle, and he goes on a bus to Kathmandu and meets a monkey who sends him on a fair trade adventure. But first of all, he sends him to a factory to find a bag. Now, in the factory, all of these characters are puppets in the story sack. He asks if they have a bag, and the little boy says they do. And this confuses Fairis, and he wonders why the little boy is not at school. And the boy explains that the bags are very cheap, but his father doesn't make very much money. And when Fairis then sees his friend Chalak, and Chalak means clever in Nepali and Hindi, Chalak gives him a map and says, why not go to Pokhara to find a fair bag? And Fairis goes to a place called Women's Skills, and he gets shown round again by puppet characters. He gets shown round Women's Skills Development Organisation, which was started by Ramkali, who I've known since 1999, but her organisation started in 1975. And he's shown around by Chu Maya, who's one of the women who works at Women's Skills. And Chu Maya explains about fair trade and how the products are not only handmade and hand woven, like all of this material is made by these women. There's pictures online, there's videos of the whole production process. I should show you the happy side, happy sad doll and happy doll. And Fairis is so happy with fair trade that he buys a fair trade bag. So I've put the storybook with the puppets together to make fair trade and learning about fair trade really exciting, especially for young children, because in the UK in particular, fair trade's almost become so well known now that it's a given, but children don't think about what does it actually mean. So by doing this, when I've done workshops in England, the children at the end of the workshop, and I've asked for their feedback, they've said, I learnt today about fair trade, but I also learnt that not everything has to be made from plastic, that material can be handmade, and that it's really important to buy products where you can, where the people who make them are being given a fair salary. And you can then have a big discussion about what is fair. You know, what should a doctor get paid? What should a nurse get paid, and a teacher? And in different countries, how much should you get paid? You shouldn't all have the same money in each country, because the cost of things costs different amounts of products. So it just gets children to think about the cost of living, about the cost of products, and to question, are some of the things that we buy a little bit too cheap, and should we be paying a little bit more? But if so, how much? So I'm really passionate about fair trade. Now, the really important thing for me as well is that the people in the book and the place Women's Skills is real. It's real people. It's women who I met, who I know. Chumaya in the book is in a wheelchair, and she says in this little book that fair trade has given her an income. She had nowhere to go and nowhere to work. And what's amazing is she also was part of a research study project and went to a conference, a World Fair Trade Organisation conference in Mombasa. And when she was there with Ramkali, the owner, she met some blind women who were producing some fair trade products. And she said to Ramkali, why are we not working with the visually impaired in our own country? And as a result of her going and meeting those ladies in Mombasa, they now work with visually impaired people in Pokhara. So travel's not just for us to go to Nepal, it's for people from Nepal to travel all over the world, for those connections to be made, and from those connections just amazing new ideas come of working with people and forming connections, so that it's women and men working together to help each other. And it's just something I'm really, really passionate about. Okay, people often ask me, where does my passion for fair trade come from? And I actually, you can't ever say what it is, but I've always been interested in geography, in social justice, and in how we can support people by every little purchase that we make makes a difference. So back in the sort of late 1990s, I was part of the Liverpool Fair Trade City steering group, and currently I'm the chair of the Fair Trade steering group for Liverpool City, and I'm on my university's Fair Trade panel. So really passionate about kind of connecting to different people within the fair trade movement. Also, Liverpool was one of the first cities to promote fair trade schools, and was part of the actual process of designing the principles to become a fair trade school. So things like buying tea and coffee, selling fair trade chocolate wherever possible, purchasing fair trade bananas, and buying as much as you can that's fair trade, but also having assemblies, getting the activities that the young children are doing into the media. And I'm really proud to be associated with St Michael's in the Hamlet that my children went to school at, but the teachers have really taken on fair trade with a passion, but they link it to numeracy, to rights respecting schools, and they link it to the philosophy for children, so children are thinking through problems for themselves and coming up with solutions, and also thinking through and thinking about the fact that everything you buy can't be fair trade at the moment because it's not there to buy, but every single purchase you make in that direction has an impact. So a lot of the teachers that I work with, I'm connected to the teachers through a teaching environmental education sustainability network. They all say that fair trade is really important for enthusing the young people. So I'm part of the Fair Trade Towns movement and network. I've also presented research papers at the Fair Trade International Symposium, myself and Bob Doherty, who's my husband, even though we have different names, but also with Alistair Smith. Together we put together our knowledge, so we drew together experiences from Brazil, South Africa, Kenya, Nepal, and we put that together to write a paper about the importance of fair trade in the global south. Now, one of the things which, when you think about fair trade, you often think about the global north, whatever that may be or not may be. I have issues with north and south because it depends on east and west. It depends where you're starting. But with the global north, we always think about us as being the consumers of fair trade products. But actually, we might also produce things which we could then sell at fair trade price. And we think of people in the global south as being producers, but increasingly, like in Nepal, there's a market for local products, of high quality products, and local people in Nepal are buying them. The same in Bangladesh, in India. So I absolutely love going to conferences to network and meet with the fair trade community. And there's the Fair Trade Foundation, which is agricultural products, and the World Fair Trade Organisation, which is handicraft. And sometimes I think those worlds need to meet a little bit more, and they need to cooperate more, because very similar principles, though different because of the nature of the product. And actually in the back of the book, one of the activities which I think is great for young people, but also I've used this with fair trade campaigners, is to actually look at the two logos, go on the internet and look at the difference between the logos and their sort of principles, and look at the similarities. And look at the synergy that's there. But absolutely love meeting fair trade campaigners, going to the Fair Trade Foundation conferences. And I just feel really lucky that my job as a lecturer and the research I do allows me to travel and meet activists, people who are trying to promote fair trade. And I'm really excited to meet Sabina today. Because we've emailed and we've sort of talked over Skype, but to meet people in person, I think, is just where those connections can really take hold. So I guess, as well as fair trade, the other thing I'm really passionate about is travelling and meeting people, and working with people. Yeah. There's lots of things that are really rewarding about the work I do, and as a lecturer, it's enthusing students and opening up the world to them, especially sharing the work that I do in Nepal. But in terms of my work that I'm doing with Fair Connections, as well as having the company, which again, it's really a small company at the moment, that it's about to really be launched and expand. It takes time to get a company ready to launch and be company ready and sort of forward facing. But the most rewarding thing is I've set up a foundation, which means that with the products and the books that we're producing, I can work with NGOs in Nepal, in educational NGOs, who are really passionately promoting child-friendly teaching. So while in the UK we want to learn about fair trade, we've got lots of different child-friendly techniques that we use, and very sort of student-focused. And that movement's taking place in Nepal. There's some really good work being done by organisations like Global Action Nepal. There's others like Classroom in the Clouds and Community Action Nepal, as well as lots of others, World Education. There's so many people working in this area. But the thing I absolutely love the most is going into communities, working with teachers, training them, and seeing how they then absorb ideas and then going back to learn. So when I first did the training, I gave out 30 story sacks with the frog in it, and the book and the puppets, and then I went back after 8 months, and I said to the teachers when I left, I'm not a primary school teacher, you are, so I'm going to come back and learn from you. And the things that they've done with the puppets, the way they were using them as motivational tools, they'd got the children to write stories. Some of the teachers had written their own stories as well and were reenacting them about, Fairis goes to Kathmandu and goes to the zoo, and they were using all these plastic animals just to see the faces of the children. And also the teachers, how it brings them out of their shells. Just absolutely love that part of the job. And I've got videos that I'm going to put on my Fair Connections website to share back with those teachers, but also with the wider community. And I'm really, really excited to see the company start to grow. Essentially, though, I need to sell products and spread the message, because the more products I sell, the more the benefit is already there for the fair trade producers. They're getting a fair salary, and that's keeping and helping them to keep them in employment. But it also means that I can use that extra money to do more work in Nepal, to spread, to meet the demand. I have teachers on Facebook contacting me saying, how can I get these puppets? And it's like, okay, October, 6 months, let's go and do some more training. Really important though that the puppets and the books aren't just given away, that it comes with training, because that then creates a network between the clusters of schools, and also can help link schools in Nepal to schools in other countries, in particular at the moment with the UK and a couple in Australia, but really looking to expand this, because when people and teachers and students go to Nepal, they're not going to give, they're not going to be charitable. They may raise money for certain things like building a library or donating books, but they go and they learn so much, and that knowledge is then shared with their children. And it's a two-way learning process. There's so much that we have in common, school to school, child to child, the same sort of issues, concerns. And that's what I absolutely love. I love the name of my company. I love the fact it's Fair Connections. People often say to me, how do you do as much as you do? You know, you research, you teach. I have 2 children who are doing their exams at the moment. So I'm a mother, a wife, a researcher, a businesswoman or an emerging businesswoman. And I do it because I connect to people, to an amazing amount of people who give their time and energy and support. And yeah, work with some great students as well. A lot of the work I've done, I couldn't have done without some of the students who've helped me along the way. So just looking forward to the next chapter. In terms of advice on how to buy ethically in the UAE or anywhere really in the world, is look around and see what's available. And if it is available and it's logoed, buy it. Sometimes Fairtrade products don't always carry logos. If you know companies who sell ethical coffee or ethical products, ask them how they know it's ethical. Get the stories from them, talk to people. And I think ethical consumption is, for me, it's going to be the thing that is the next big thing. It's the poverty in the world, the inequality has to be challenged. And I don't think not consuming is not the answer. You have to consume more, consume ethically, but look for those high quality products, give your feedback, test them out, look for things which are on trend, look for the companies who are meeting your demands, and talk to the suppliers. You know, if there's products that you like but they're not in the right colours, they've got a direct line to communicate back to the producers, because people who sell Fairtrade products are part of a Fairtrade network. We have conferences, we have the World Fair Trade Organisation in Delhi this November, and the buyers in the UAE need to know what you want as well, not so that they're not just supplying products for you to buy, they want to buy the products you want. So I think something you could do is have conversation cafes, set up networks, start to talk about it. Think about the links between ethical purchasing, recycling, reusing. Don't just think of fair trade as being something to get into because it's trendy. Think about it in its widest context. Also thinking about buying local as well. That was one of the key things with Bruce Crowther and the Fair Trade Town movement, is to convince people in Garstang to buy fair trade. He also had to say buy fair trade and buy local, because the local farmers were struggling to sell their products at a fair price. So don't just see it as something between us and them, people who are far away. But if you create the demand, if you can't get your fair trade tea, coffee, bananas, well, where did the demand come from in the UK? It came from campaigners going into supermarkets, going into shops and asking for those products. Fill out the comment cards. A really good example, organic baby food wasn't available in my Tesco when my children were born, and I just kept asking and asking, and as it builds into a movement, 1 person, 2 people, it builds, and now it's it would be hard to find somewhere that doesn't stock it. So you have to demand it, you have to let people know the products that you want. But I'd also say the UAE, for me, it is in the centre, it's in this pathway. You know, more and more people are coming to the UAE, and you want to be showcasing that you're ahead of the game ethically. You know, so hotels should be providing fair trade tea and coffee. Get that logo out, show the world that you care, because it's something to be really proud of. Okay, so with the UAE being sort of in the centre and this cross path where people travel to and from, demand the products, because the more they're in demand, the more visible they are. You know, get them in your airport, everywhere, because so many people pass through that airport. And you only get that by asking, by campaigning. So connect and travel, and when you do travel, seek out those fair trade producers, because for me, one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about fair trade is that when you meet the people that it's having an impact on, when you see that these women are economically empowered, they can send their children to school, they're not depending on handouts, they don't want charity, they want jobs, they want respect, they want to earn their living. And you just can't be anything but impassioned by that. So have cafes, show films, read books, create a conversation, and inspire young people, because it's the young people who are going to make a big impact. And I think that's why I focus on education and schools, because once children know about Fairtrade, they ask questions, and the more questions they ask, then the better it is for all. I think as well, as an educator, myself at university, or if you're a teacher in a school, you actually have a responsibility to make young children think outside of the box and challenge the world and the system that we live in. And I know that in the UK we've got things like global citizenship, we've got to study British values, how you can link fair trade and being ethical into your culture and your customs is really important to make that personal connection. And then there's campaigners and activists like Sabina at the Little Fair Trade shop, and going into schools and providing workshops maybe once a year. But what I would say is make more use of people like Sabina, and invite her and others to do inset days with the staff, so that the staff are on board. What you tend to find, or my experience in the UK of fair trade schools, is it might just be one teacher who's passionate about fair trade that makes all the difference. But what you want is all the teachers to come on board, because you can explore maths, you can explore geography, religion, culture, gender, so many things through the sort of topic and theme of fair trade. Because at the end of the day, we all have to consume in order to survive, and people need to produce in order to earn a living. And the more we can do that ethically, the more you are just sort of building not just tokenistic global citizens, but people who really do care about global issues. And I'd almost say it's kept me in my job as a lecturer, is inspiring people to think about fair trade, but not just fair trade, but about ethics, about development, and ask some difficult questions. But definitely make the most of anyone who wants to come and talk to you and share their experiences. As schools, you could cluster together and invite a producer over. Start your own fair trade day or fair trade fortnight. And Fair Trade Fortnight in the UK is really popular in February, which is a Fair Trade Foundation initiative. And it's when the producers come over and talk to young people. Wow, it has an impact. Yes, everything's available on YouTube and you can hear from people who've met them. But as a group of schools, if you could just maybe pay for someone to come over and do a talk, you won't look back. And the World Fair Trade Organisation, in May, they have the World Fair Trade Day. But I think the challenge for us in England and places where fair trade's become quite popular is to take fair trade out of those times as well and embed it into annual events and festivals, and celebrate being together, celebrate being a family, celebrate spending time together, but sort of try to celebrate that and link that to being ethical as well. And it just brings people closer together, not just across countries, but within countries and within families. And talk to your young children. If you're a mother, a father, a parent of a child at school, ask them if they know about fair trade, and if not, ask the school why they're not teaching it, because change only comes if people ask for it.